Hi, I'm Marshall Sponder, author of Social Media Analytics, and I'm here in my hotel room in Singapore about to present an impromptu version of ultraviolet social data analytics. Um, Please refer to my SlideShare presentation for more details on how you can correlate what I'm going to say with various slides that I have online. First, I want to talk a little bit about myself. I'm Marshall Sponder. I'm the author of the book on analytics. I'm also CEO of WebMatrix Guru Inc., a consultancy practice that works with vendors such as Icon, PQ, Venue Labs, Recorded Future, eSavvy, and various other companies to better utilize their data and to do some investigative research. As well, I have a practice called Insights Digital, and that comes to actually implement the findings for different companies and integrate with their technology stacks. In addition, I author WebMatrix Guru. I'm in here my 7th year of that, a well-read social media and web analytics research blog. So anyway, that's me. So that corresponds to slide 2. Slide 3, I wanted to talk about swimming in data, how we are swimming in data in Singapore. Here we are. I found it at the pool where at the Marina Bay Resort, Marina Bay Sands Resort, where I'm staying. It just shows a person swimming on this gigantic pool, which I think at the top of the hotel complex. But that's just an example of swimming in data. I came up with the concept of ultraviolet data to explain data that is all around us but we don't capture. For example, there's ultraviolet data in this example on slide 4, really talking about hidden patterns that we don't see. But ultraviolet data could be the information about our customers and potential customers that we're not seeing and we're not aware of. And so if you advance to slide 5, the audience here at the SITF ICT Summit are very much so brand marketers, digital marketers, brand managers, and related IT people. And actually, the related IT services is an important component of the attendance here. I see there's just really a good mixture, and there's reasons why both brand and IT services would care about ultraviolet data. If we go to slide 7, you need to go to the reasons why brands here need to care about ultraviolet data is that brand managers need to build their brands and sell more products or services, and IT support need to make sure that those services actually work and that they are integrating customer database data correctly, that they're accessible and available. And increasingly, that's not always an easy thing to do. How to accomplish all of this? This is slide 8. You have to know more about your customers using social media and get this other information, the information that's ultraviolet. And so the challenge here in slide 9 is that so much of the data we want is ultraviolet. And again, what is ultraviolet data? Let's take a look at slide 10. It's the missing data, again, that can be more important in a way than the data that we're collecting. I think back in my life to a time maybe way back when I worked with the first computer-based training module called Demo 2 for Chase Manhattan Bank. This must have been like 25, 30 years ago. And I remember the person that hired me to do some work said, you know, we only use a small fraction of the potential of this platform. I think I had used about 25% of what that particular software did. I realized as I investigated more that it actually could do way more. I got to increase that, but I never utilized it fully. I saw, though, a lot of potential there. Um, as time went on, I began to correlate that with ideas that people say we only use 5 or 10% of our brain, but we're not totally using everything that's there. And began to break that down to the differences between data we can collect. Um, for example, the data we see, the sales data that we get, the various social data that we can get, versus a lot of the things that we're not collecting. So I called that ultraviolet data. But I also saw it as platforms that aren't really using the full capabilities of what they have. I'm working with a company now looking at its ultraviolet capabilities. There are several other companies that I look at that way, such as Recorded Future, their new lab, Sprinkler, and so on, where and Radiant 6 and Brand Watch and so on. Many vendors in the space I have relationships with, and I find, well, that's interesting what you're doing, but there's all these other things that are out there as well. How much of that are we collecting, and how much better would any of these platforms be to the extent they can capture? And then there's the capabilities of people. Again, people are often not, we never know what we're capable of until we're put into situations. And a lot of times in doing the research for ultraviolet audits, which we're going to talk about shortly, we're really doing some investigative work that we don't always know what the value that we're going to recover. So there is an element of exploratory work that has a tactical component, but the two actually do coexist. So next, going to the next slide. Many of you here are probably experiencing something that's very common, and that is that your current situation is that you're overwhelmed and you're stretched out. You've got all this data around you, but the question is, how do you even grasp it? How do you get a hold of it? You know, and it's big data, and there's big data analytics, and and how do you even tell the story of it? Well, here in the next slide, slide 12. You know, your current reports are probably giving you just a very cursory view of social data and other types of data that's diagnostic. It's similar to web analytics in a lot of cases, where just if you bring your car into a diagnostic shop, you'll get a lot of numbers and readouts, and there'll be a mechanic that'll analyst that will try to interpret what it all means. And essentially, here we have just an example of that. You know, you've got a lot of charts and graphs, but what does it all mean? I hear so many people telling me, well, what does it mean? What is all this stuff? They're taking all this data. So here's the ultraviolet audit. This is slide 13. It's not a solution in and of itself. It's part of a solution. You know, a lot of times to get the data, we have to know what we don't have. You know, like, so it's an investigative component, an audit. In this case, I was looking at a restaurant chain, and found that a large amount of the data was stuff that they had not collected, that they could get, and then there was stuff that they had but wasn't particularly useful. So if you look at the results in slide 14, you see that 82% of the information that they could collect, either they didn't collect it, or they didn't have it in a way that was useful, and that in turn, you know, resulted in not being able to marshal that data and use it in a way to get ROI and to get any of the other things. And typically, a lot of times, people had problems collecting information and deciding what that information, the value of the information, was it worth it, or what do I do with it? And so if we're looking here at slide 15 now, the ultraviolet data capabilities audit is it's really about looking at where it looks at social media mentions and sentiment. It includes our house data system, including web analytics. Include the e-commerce data that also can fall into web analytics, but doesn't necessarily have to. It could be POS system data, point of sale. It could be call center and customer service data. Geolocation data, check-in data is very important now and increasingly becoming a big factor. There's temporal futures analysis, that's recorded future, and there's financials. There's the ability to overlay financial data in financial history. There's actually a company called Wealth Engine that does collect a lot of that. Hospitals and nonprofits use it, but it's possible to integrate that as well as your own internal records into a cohesive whole. And so we're finding that. Now, one of the other things, I will stop here just to pause to go on to the next slide.